What would you do if you discovered that you only had 1 minute left to live? Would you kill an innocent person to extend your life for a few more hours or minutes? This is the dilemma that the main character of this story faces. Lewis is a man from South Korea who had a miserable life and was reborn in another world full of swords, magic, different races and adventures. Everything seemed to be good for him except for one thing. There is a timer that only he can see and it shows how much time he has left to live. To increase his lifespan, he has to kill a white. And depending on its level, a few hours or days will be added to his timer. For this purpose, he visits battlefields after wars and finishes off whoever he finds half dead. This time, he only had 30 minutes left and couldn't find any prey for himself. Suddenly, he saw a man on the other side who was seriously injured and asking for help. But Lewis couldn't help him, because that man was beyond saving and also Lewis needed someone to sacrifice. He didn't kill people for fun, so he wasn't happy about it and just ended the man's life with his sword. He was an ordinary farmer and added only 20 hours to Lewis's timer. 20 hours wasn't enough and Lewis needed to find more victims. Meanwhile, someone was coming from far away. It looked like that guy saw what Lewis had done and came to talk to him. He said, "Lately, no one is showing signs of being near death. Are you the culprit?" It seems that guy was doing the same thing as Lewis but for a different goal. He kept asking questions while he stepped on a corpse's head and didn't care at all. Lewis was all messed up and didn't know what that man was talking about or even who he was. He was a huge man with a big sword and he was quite famous as Stefan, the soul harvester. Stefan came here to punish Lewis for killing his plaything, as he said. He figured out Lewis wasn't at his best, so he tried to finish him. Stefan raised his sword and struck Lewis with all his might. In disbelief, the boy managed to block it, but the power of impact was so high that it caused him to be thrown back a few meters. Stefan attacked for the second time and Lewis blocked it again and impressed him. He couldn't believe that weak boy blocked his attacks twice and now Stefan was excited to tear him apart to see Lewis's expression in that moment. Suddenly, something from behind cut the devil man in half and made the MC shocked. It was a man with a giant axe who seemed to know Stefan and found a good opportunity to finish him. The man with axe asked Lewis if he was alright or not, but suddenly the boy took an attack position. Immediately, Lewis jumped and thrust his sword on Stefan's half-dead body. The guys over there were surprised to see what the boy did and thought maybe he really hated Stefan. This time, Lewis got more than 100 hours and felt relieved to have more than 3 days to live. Even after killing that monster, Lewis felt guilty and his whole body was shaking. The guy with axe was watching him and suddenly asked Lewis to join his mercenary band. The others weren't agree with that guy, but he reminded them that Lewis blocked Stefan's attacks twice and that means he has potential. On the other hand, MC wasn't sure if joining a mercenary band was really good for him or not. The guy with axe tried to convince Lewis by saying he would get stronger and have more chance to survive if he joined the band. The moment he said, "We don't kill people because we like to do it, but we do it for survival," changed Lewis's mind and he agreed to join them. He stood up and introduced himself as Lewis but told them just call him Louis.
Several months after that, on a dark rainy night, a strange man entered the bar and asked the bartender if he ever knew anything about Soul Harvester or not. The old man said, "Of course I remember, even if I want to forget about him, I can't." And he started to tell his story of facing our MC in battlefield.
About a month ago, I met him in the territorial battle. I was a serf soldier under the Viscount Bear. I know it's obvious, but that man also was a knight. I heard the power that a knight uses is different from the magic. People call them the chosen humans who can use ether. As you well know, the every presence of a knight on the front lines is a great fear for the enemy soldiers. Ordinary soldiers couldn't even think to imitating the movements of a human who uses ether. In front of their sword, we, the serfs, were like easy to slice cheese. Still, we didn't run away, because we knew we weren't the ones who should run away. As we had the best knight squad of Viscount Bear, consisting of Lord Jackson and 8 knight with us. And we knew the only person who can kill a knight is a stronger knight. Especially for the Knight Nell, the aide of Knight Jackson. Since we knew of his great accomplishments in the territorial battle, we didn't doubt that notorious Soul Harvester would get killed on the battlefield. At least until we saw Knight Nell getting cut in half. No one expected this, and silence befell on the battlefield. And at that moment, I clearly heard what he said, "I've accomplished enough life. I will use 1,000 hours of my life, just lend me a power, God of War Ron." And after that, something unbelievable happened. Viscount Bear's entire order of knights was slaughtered without even being able to hold for half of a minute. After seeing that, we all ran away. When we turned our heads, we saw something in red color is glaring at us, and it was saying something like it's not enough.
The stranger wondered if the old man had any other memories before the soul harvester went berserk, like eating something or anything else. But the old man couldn't recall anything else. After that, the stranger thanked the bartender and gave him 2 coins as a reward for his story and wanted to leave. Suddenly, the old man said, "Wait, I didn't mention the name of that mercenary." The man replied and said, "I already knew it. He has become quite famous in the last year." A few days later, on the other side of the city, Louis's comrades were having a party for their last victory while he was sitting alone at another table and checking his remaining time. After slaughtering so many people, he had only 1,000 hours left to live. He realized it meant only a month and a half, so he felt disappointed and thought it's not enough. But a few seconds later, Louis understood that it is much better than living as manhwa, and soon remembered his previous life where he was doomed to die without being able to do anything in his bed. He also remembered his wish that he wanted to live in a healthy body, and it seemed someone like God promised him to grant his wish. But he was reborn in this world without any special advantage, but a time limit. He figured out that to survive for 6 months, he need to kill 180 ordinary people and thought he would become the world's worst murderer. Suddenly one of his drunk comrades came and interrupted him and invited him to drink with them, but a few moments later the vice-captain of his band came and told him to explain how he managed to kill those powerful knights in the battlefield all by himself. It seemed it had happened before and Louis didn't want to tell them all the details, or even if he did, they wouldn't believe him, so he just said, "I got lucky, they were out of formation and I caught them off guard." They realized he was lying and hiding something from them, and this time the vice-captain asked seriously, "What are you hiding from your allies? Tell us." Now he thought he had no choice but to tell the truth. He said, "I was kidding, the only thing I did was risking my whole life." All of his comrades were shocked by his answer and thought he was joking again, so they sent him some small gifts. Suddenly they stopped when the captain entered and asked them to give the boy some space. The captain's name was Turn and his title was Woodchopper. He asked Louis to spend some time with him, and Louis agreed. After a short time the captain was already waiting for Levi in his room. As soon as MC arrived, Turn congratulated him for what he did in the recent battle and forced him to sit on the chair and offered him a drink. And that wasn't the main purpose of this conversation. The captain talked about something regarding Viscount Bear, that he was gathering soldiers again, and Levi should ambush them at night and finish him off and kill all of his soldiers. Louis accepted that, and Turn gave him the location of the place. MC decided to go right away and Turn gave him the permission to leave. Louis was in such a hurry that he even didn't want to waste any time for talking about the reward of this mission. After a few hours, when he was in the middle of the forest, a thought came to his mind, a thought about how he has to fight in battles in order to live one more day, and on the other hand, how nobles of this world sacrifice countless people to save a little more money. His friends in the band called him Levi these days. Levi thought he had been reborn in this world for 10 years and he never looked down at taking a human life. But those nobles were completely different. Suddenly he noticed there is a shadow behind a tree and soon realized he was surrounded from all sides. At first he thought they are Viscount Bear's knights who came to take revenge for their dead comrades. He drew his sword and wanted to kill them, but suddenly felt he can't move his body. He fell down on his knees and spat out a lot of blood. It had never happened before, so he soon after understood his drink was poisoned. A few moments later the knights ran towards him to finish him off. Levi thought if he dies here, all of his friends would be in danger, so he gathered some spirit to fight them and got up. But he wasn't fast enough and both of the knights stabbed their swords into Levi's body at the same time. Soon after they pulled the swords out, and Levi collapsed because he had no more strength to stand. When they saw Levi was about to die, they revealed their identity and admitted to poisoning him. It was the vice-captain and some of his comrades who betrayed him, as Viscount Bear promised to give them a lot of money. At first Levi shocked and said, "If Captain Turn finds out about what you did to me, you would be in big trouble." But sadly, the vice-captain informed Levi that the one who poisoned him, the one who planned all of this, was Captain Turn himself. The poor boy was stunned for a moment because he couldn't believe those memories were all a lie, all of those friendly acts, he always considered them as his friends, but soon realized all of that thoughts about being friends with them was one-sided. The vice-captain didn't want to waste any more time and aimed for Levi's head to cut it off, but he was unaware of Levi's ability. MC managed to hold the sword in his hand and immediately spent 1,000 hours of his life to activate Blessing of Ruam's skill. Because of this skill, Levi didn't feel pain and he became 10 times stronger, also gained 5 times more muscular endurance. Soon the vice-captain realized that's how Levi can use ether. In other hand, Levi used 1,000 hours and had only a few seconds until he dies automatically. But for now, all of his wounds were already healed and he had the power to break the vice-captain's sword with his bare hand, and a few seconds were more than enough for him to kill all of them. On the other hand, when the vice-captain saw that Levi had no weapon, he ordered all of his subordinates to attack at once and finish him off. For the second time, he underestimated Levi and his ability. Levi smiled as if he knew this was going to happen. Because of his skill, blessing of Ruam, he could enter the field of God War and choose any legendary weapon that belonged to the god Ruam. And he found what he wanted, but he had less than 8 seconds before he dies. The vice captain and the others were horrified to see the great sword in Levi's hands and regretted for underestimating him. But it was too late. Levi dashed towards them and killed them in the blink of an eye. He had only 3 seconds left after that, so he asked a question. To you guys, what kind of being was I? The vice captain laughed and said, what an emotional question at this moment. You didn't expect us to become a family, did you? And after that, they realized they were cut down to pieces and died instantly. Because of the blessing of Ruam, Levi was glowing with a red color and gained 500 hours of life at the last second. Soon after, his divine skill deactivated and a physical overload temporarily compromised his abilities. He felt pain in his whole body that made him kneel and unable to move. In that moment, he had enough time to think if really all of Turn's mercenaries had betrayed him, or not. But he didn't want to believe that, so he tried to get back to check if there was anyone on his side or not. As soon as he returned to their base, he was stunned by the scene. The whole residence was burning, all of the mercenary members were dead and Levi couldn't figure out who did this. Suddenly, he heard the voice of a man behind him. That man was one of Levi's comrades back then and tried to warn Levi about Turn's betrayal, but someone else was behind that man and didn't let him finish his words. It was Turn who was coming from far away towards Levi and talking about how Levi could survive that strong poison, and how all of his best men couldn't defeat the boy. It seemed it was Turn himself who threw the axe and split the man's head a moment ago. Levi still couldn't believe why Turn would kill all of his allies or even burn his base. Turn pulled out the axe from the man's head and said, Ally? Today I haven't killed a single one of my allies. I've just gotten rid of obstacles to my goal. The man didn't feel a bit ashamed after killing all of his subordinates, and that pissed Levi off. And soon after, because Levi was the last survivor, Turn decided to tell him why he did this. He revealed that he secretly made a contract with Viscount Bear to get rid of this mercenary band, and in exchange, Viscount Bear would give him a noble title. That answer pissed off Levi even more. Levi couldn't understand how someone could kill all of his family and feel happy about it just for getting a noble title. He couldn't control his anger anymore. He rushed towards Turn and tried to kill him, but Turn blocked his attack easily. Levi's eyes were glowing from rage and Turn looked much calmer, as if he believed in his power. It was just the beginning of their fight, and none of them backed down. Turn soon realized he was being pushed back and can't defeat Levi like this, so he decided to activate his ether while he was reminding Levi about his woodchopper title. Turn had 50 years of battle experience and considered himself on a completely different level compared to Levi. He directly wanted to show off his ultimate move and finish the boy, but he was unaware of Levi's power. It didn't take long before Levi split Turn's body in half without letting him finish his ultimate move. Turn fell down and realized that Levi also had the ability to use ether, but it was too late for him. After spending 2 years with this band, Levi had lost everything in only one night. He was looking at their residence, and thinking how he wished to die the whole time when he was in bed in his last life. But now everyone was dead except himself. He felt like he couldn't leave his comrades' corpses on the ground, so he gathered them in one place and buried them. To honor them, he collected all of their swords and planted them on random spots, then he left the base forever. But the next day, the proconsul summoned Levi and informed him that he had a debt of 8,600 gold. Levi tried to convince him that he never borrowed money from anyone or that no one would lend him money even if he wanted to. But the proconsul reminded him that the building of the mercenary squad that burned to ashes the other day was worth 8,600 gold. According to the contract that Levi signed, and also as the last survivor of that squad, he had to pay for it. For a moment Levi realized it's 100% a scam, but soon after he remembered that a while ago Turn had asked him to sign a contract, and he didn't even read it and signed. This time he had to pay for it, but even if he wanted to, he had no money to do it. He asked, "What are you going to do if I don't pay?" At that moment, several soldiers rushed towards him and surrounded him, and the proconsul warned him that the magicians paid quite a lot of money for the organs of knights who used ether. For a second, Levi decided to fight back, but it seemed like the proconsul just wanted to force Levi to accept his job as the payment of the debt, and not anything else. It was a request from Viscount Bear, and it is about dealing with an illegal armed force in the Black Forest. It looked like he had sent a few expeditions before but failed, and now he had found a strong man and wanted to make good use of him. Levi thought it's better to accept it, and so he did, and he left immediately. The proconsul told him to visit him once every 3 days, or he would get in trouble. And after that he thought he forgot to tell something very important about the Dark Forest, but the boy had already left. And in that crucial moment, something remarkable occurred. Demonic creatures lurked within the depths of the Black Forest, but Levi bravely confronted them. He was taken aback by the sight of those peculiar beings, feeling a mix of surprise and frustration towards the proconsul, who had failed to warn him about their existence. Levi soon realized that each of these creatures could extend his survival time by 60 hours, leading him to contemplate the idea of hunting them instead of killing fellow humans. However, a sudden rush of forgotten memories flooded his mind, the memory of his first kill. It was a young man who stared at Levi with tear-filled eyes. The weight of taking a life overwhelmed him. That day, the thought of perpetuating this cycle for his own survival seemed maddening, but it faded after a mere 2 weeks when he grew accustomed to his grim reality. He despised being reduced to treating humans as mere resources, but he was bound by circumstances and forced to pay the price of staying alive. Killing the beast somehow evoked those memories, reminding him that he would never have chosen this life, yet destiny had other plans for him. The thought of abandoning the slaughter of humans and becoming a hunter of these demonic creatures took hold in his mind. In this fantasy world, there were more than enough beasts to sustain him indefinitely, even if they were tougher adversaries than humans. Levi had made up his mind to become a beast hunter, but an unidentified figure had been observing and eavesdropping on his musings. The man remarked, "Beast hunter? You've barely made it to the entrance of the forest." Unaware of Levi's identity, he recognized that being a beast hunter was no easy feat, reserved only for the few. Levi replied, "I won't know until I try. By the way, who are you?" The man introduced himself as a seasoned beast hunter residing in the Black Forest. He leaped off a cliff, eager to impart some of the rules that governed interactions between beast hunters. The first rule emphasized respecting the territorial boundaries of fellow hunters. It became apparent that the man intended to warn Levi that this particular part of the forest belonged to him, and hunting his prey without permission would not be tolerated. Levi understood his message and relinquished the loot without provoking a confrontation. He emphasized his primary interest in eliminating the beasts rather than collecting spoils. In return, Levi posed a question to the man. "Do you have any knowledge about the illicit armed forces in the Black Tower?" The man sighed and responded, "Ah, not this again. The Viscount Bear bestowed such an unusual name upon us, the beast hunters within the tower." Levi had found his main target for this mission and swiftly launched an attack on the hunter. Reluctantly, he was compelled to kill the man as recompense for the debt owed. To Levi's astonishment, the beast hunter effortlessly restrained his assault with a mere 2 fingers. The hunter reminded Levi that he was not the only one pursuing the beast hunters, and that all previous attempts had failed. He urged Levi to exert more strength in his attacks. Levi abandoned his attempt to activate the blessing of the war god, Rum, as he lacked the necessary 1,000 hours to unlock its power. Instead, he resorted to attacking with his ether. On his second strike, he believed he had vanquished the hunter, but to his dismay, his sword shattered into pieces. In that moment, he realized he was in grave danger, yet he was unable to react in time. The hunter delivered a devastating blow to his chest, a punch of extraordinary force that sent him hurtling several meters backward, obliterating trees in his path until he crashed against a large rock, abruptly halting his motion. The hunter did not leave Levi's side and approached the boy, delivering an even more powerful punch. The impact caused the rock behind Levi to explode, and he lost consciousness. The hunter, intrigued by the resilience Levi displayed even in his final moments, felt a tinge of remorse and decided not to abandon him there. He understood that Levi's potential could be a valuable asset. Several days later, Levi awoke from a nightmare, haunted by the memory of his fallen comrades. He found himself in an unfamiliar location, surrounded by the hunter from before and 4 other men, all fixated on him. Levi suddenly let out a scream, irritating everyone present. He experienced a sharp pain in his chest, and his body trembled. The recollection of the previous day and the person responsible for his agony flooded his mind. Meanwhile, the man, feeling somewhat remorseful for inflicting such a powerful blow, held a position of authority among them. Levi inquired about his identity, and the man introduced himself as Guilford, the chief of the beast hunters' town. Guilford informed Levi that he had been unconscious for 3 days in the town. Levi's memory was jogged, realizing that he needed to visit the proconsul every 3 days to provide a report. And as the 3 days had already passed, Levi felt screwed. However, the thought didn't bother him, and he introduced himself as Levi Delosi, mentioning that he had been a mercenary until a few days ago. Guilford tried to make a joke, saying, "This guy didn't even know about us, yet he tried to take on this task all alone." Everyone burst into laughter, which upset Levi. For a moment, he considered finding the weakest among them and killing him to accumulate enough time to activate his blessing of Ruam's skill and then eliminate Guilford and the others. But he had no idea how to identify the weakest one, or if he could actually kill him quickly enough. Before he could drown in his thoughts, Guilford interrupted and asked if Levi really wanted to become a beast hunter, suggesting that he could join him in the town. Levi was surprised by the invitation, remarking that it had only been a few days since Guilford beat him up, and now he was being invited to the city. Guilford had anticipated this question and had a plan to make good use of Levi. He didn't want the boy to stay there for free. Instead, he needed Levi to hunt beasts for him. Levi seemed interested, and Guilford noticed that. The town chief gave Levi a cute painting of a demonic beast and asked him to hunt it as an entrance exam. Guilford claimed it was just a weak beast and that Levi should be able to kill it easily. Levi believed Guilford's words and considered it his morning exercise, preparing to leave immediately. However, as soon as he encountered the beast, he realized that it wasn't at all what Guilford had described. The demonic beasts were 4 meters tall and lived in groups. Just by looking at their faces, Levi realized it was an idiot who had drawn that picture. Levi was at a loss for how to complete his job with these demonic beasts. Their ability to regenerate their wounds deeply frustrated him, and their fighting style got on his nerves. However, Levi recalled a technique he had learned from video games back in South Korea, a way to defeat monsters like these. In a crucial moment, as a demonic beast attempted to attack him, he aimed for its head and destroyed it with the help of his ether. Only then did he realize that there were 2 more beasts remaining. Nevertheless, he had already discovered the method to finish them off. Levi felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that he had found an easy way to earn money and extend his lifespan simultaneously. However, upon arriving in town, the chief informed Levi that he wouldn't receive any payment for defeating these 3 beasts. The other hunters were taken aback, as they didn't expect a newcomer like Levi to kill 3 demonic beasts. Meanwhile, Guilford explained how Levi should hunt these monsters, emphasizing the need to let their bodies fully regenerate before separating their heads. Yet, Levi had finished them off before they could heal, rendering them worthless. Understanding Guilford's intentions, Levi apologized, acknowledging that it was his first hunt and that he needed more time to learn. After 2 weeks, the boy mastered the technique, astonishing the chief and others with his hunting skills. They even tried to teach him how to butcher the beasts, but he was already proficient at it. However, the town faced a significant problem: food shortage. They relied on demonic beasts to make dishes like stew. After several weeks, Levi grew accustomed to the food, becoming the first person in town to eat it without complaint. In response, the cook began giving all his food to Levi, as everyone else appeared poisoned and sick. Levi reached a point where he no longer worried about his lifespan and felt content. The cook persistently offered his special dish to Levi, but he always declined, remembering the trust issues he initially had. Guilford, however, continued to reassure him that there was no poisonous food in the town. Initially, Levi couldn't sleep comfortably without his sword, always propping himself against a wall and sleeping upright. While other hunters found his behavior odd, they didn't consider him a spy. They understood that he had a difficult past, which shaped his current behavior. Guilford seemed happy to have Levi around but had a new mission for him. Several days had passed since they lost contact with other towns inside the forest, so Guilford asked Levi to check on them. Levi was unaware of the existence of other towns in the forest, surprising Guilford. He chided Levi, asking how they could patrol the entire forest by themselves. Hours later, as Levi headed to check the west town, he felt as if he were reliving his first day in this world. Everything seemed completely different from the last 10 years. He wished for these peaceful days to last forever, but his hopes were shattered when he noticed a corpse on the ground. Judging by the outfit and wounds, Levi deduced that the person was a beast hunter killed by a sword master human, not a demonic beast. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him and turned to investigate. It was a disheveled and frightened girl. Initially, Levi suspected her of being involved in the murder, but she stumbled and pleaded for help, explaining that she was searching for the 6th post in the west. She cried out in frustration, questioning why they were being bothered and why knights and mercenaries were being brought in. Others who were also searching for the girl seemed to hear her cries and found her. These 3 men appeared responsible for the dead body and now had sinister intentions for the poor girl. Upon recognizing Levi, they sneered, mentioning his past as a bounty post target, a soul harvester named Levi who had annihilated his entire mercenary squad and fled after stealing money from the guild. The girl was stunned upon hearing this, her tears drying up. Levi remained calm, not expecting any danger from them. As one of the men approached him, asking for any final words, Levi swiftly severed the hands of 2 of them in an instant, without even using his ether. The 3rd man, however, acted faster and took the girl hostage, threatening to harm her if Levi came any closer. Without wasting a moment, Levi hurled his sword at the man's face, freeing the girl. The whole sequence occurred in a matter of seconds, leaving the man incapable of reacting. Levi remained composed, allowing the bounty hunters to escape. Suddenly, the girl reached out and grabbed Levi's hands, desperately begging for his help. She revealed that those men were mercenaries working for Viscount Bear and had attacked her town. Moved by the girl's plea, Levi agreed to assist her and accompanied her to their city. Unfortunately, they arrived too late. The town had already been ravaged, with everyone killed and everything burned to the ground. The girl was devastated, unable to comprehend the loss of all the good people in her town. As Levi surveyed the scene and noticed that the victims had suffered severe injuries from a powerful form of ether, similar to Turn's ultimate move, it became clear to him that whoever had done this possessed a 100% similar ether power. That town wasn't the only one to suffer the wrath of Viscount Bear's army. The eastern town, the most recent target, faced a brutal attack. The soldiers of Viscount Bear showed no mercy, slaughtering every inhabitant without remorse. Amidst the chaos, a survivor struggled to find a safe haven. Unfortunately, a man wielding an axe spotted him and moved in for the kill. Before delivering the final blow, he taunted the wounded man, mocking his feeble attempts to crawl away. Ignoring the warnings of impending consequences from the wounded man, "Guilford will come after you and will kill you all," swiftly silenced him, splitting his head open. Suddenly, another man arrived, reporting that their comrades in the western city had been attacked by a figure known as the Soul Harvester. This man, evidently the commander of Viscount Bear's army, recognized the Soul Harvester, even knowing his true name, Levi. However, the commander's interest seemed to shift towards annihilating all who resided in the Black Forest, expressing a desire for a showdown with Levi. On the other side of the forest, Levi returned to his town and shared his findings. Guilford, aware of Viscount Bear's repeated attempts to eliminate the beast hunters in the tower, acknowledged that this time was different. The chief devised a plan for a counterattack, but he also aimed to spare their lives. Levi, on the other hand, disagreed, suggesting they simply kill them all. Guilford reminded Levi that they were hunters, not murderers. However, Levi couldn't shake his concerns, warning them about a formidable mercenary within Viscount Bear's army. Suddenly, the chief noticed a girl standing behind Levi and inquired if she was his lady. Startled, she couldn't deny it and reluctantly accepted the role assigned to her by Guilford, despite her lack of battle experience. The chief reassured her, explaining that her role didn't involve fighting, but rather something that suited her well. Unable to escape her fate, she agreed. When Viscount Bear's army arrived at night to destroy another town, they encountered an unexpected sight. Only 2 individuals sat by the fire, completely oblivious to their presence. It was Levi and the girl realized with horror that Guilford had intended for her to be the bait. However, the commander sensed a trap and ordered one of his mercenaries to cautiously approach them. When the mercenary attempted to question their whereabouts and kick Levi, Levi swiftly retaliated, severing the man's leg. Frightened, the girl sought refuge behind a wooden structure, and the chief declared that her part was done, instructing her to return and hide within the town. She ran away while Levi prepared himself for battle. The mercenaries, seeing Levi alone and without reinforcements, charged at him, unaware of the treacherous trap lying in wait. Many fell into a concealed hole, while the remaining few managed to halt just in time. They warned each other to be cautious of traps going forward. The hunters anticipated this response and swiftly moved on to Phase 2, releasing a massive wooden contraption that knocked a few more mercenaries into the hole. Panic ensued among the remaining mercenaries as they attempted to flee from the traps, but a larger and deadlier one lay ahead, ensnaring them. Guilford and Cook observed the chaos, bewildered by the mercenaries' foolishness, expecting something more from them. Only the commander remained, and he ordered his subordinates to cut the ropes with their knives and escape. Guilford warned them that any such attempt would lead them to the pit. Distracted, the commander became vulnerable, allowing Levi to launch a surprise attack. The commander sensed Levi's presence and successfully blocked his strike. In that moment, the commander realized that Levi was not what he had expected, resembling the infamous Soul Harvester. The battle between the two continued, with both unleashing their full power and utilizing ether. The commander's size, fighting style, and formidable axe were reminiscent of Tern, causing Levi to briefly doubt if Tern was truly alive after that particular attack. Mentioning Tern's name ignited a mysterious anger within the commander. Glaring at each other with intense rage, a demonic beast suddenly emerged behind the commander, its roar capturing everyone's attention. Levi couldn't fathom why they had chosen this moment to reveal themselves, while the other mercenaries trembled in fear. The beasts launched their assault on the humans. Meanwhile, Guilford realized that it was no longer the time to fight each other and signaled to Levi to cease the battle. However, Levi failed to comprehend Guilford's intentions. The monsters continued their onslaught against the town and its inhabitants. Nevertheless, Guilford commanded his men to form a defensive line against the beasts, while Levi and the commander persisted in their relentless fight, oblivious to the imminent danger. Eventually, they could no longer ignore the demonic beast, and in a synchronized attack, they struck it together. On the other side, Guilford couldn't simply stand idly by and witness the demonic creatures ravage the town, slaughtering its inhabitants. He leaped into action, delivering a powerful blow to the first monster's face. With a combination of ether and his own abilities, he obliterated its head completely. Shortly after eliminating the beast, Guilford found himself perplexed, unable to uncover any clues as to why the creatures emerged from the forest to launch their attack. Suddenly, the voice of the town's guardian wall, which had been decimated by the monsters, resonated through the air. Without delay, a horde of wolf-like creatures infiltrated the town, ruthlessly assaulting its human residents. Outnumbered and overwhelmed, many fell victim to the onslaught, while others desperately tried to escape. Guilford observed the chaos, bewildered as to why such high-ranking beasts would appear in the heart of the forest. Meanwhile, the commander traversed alongside a colossal monster, contemplating the reason behind these relentless attacks. Unexpectedly, the monster regained consciousness and launched a surprise assault from behind. Caught off guard, the commander had no inkling of what was about to transpire. In a stunning turn of events, Levi emerged out of nowhere, swiftly separating the monster's body and delivering a fatal blow. It was only then that the commander realized the imminent danger he had faced. Moments ago, they had harbored intense animosity towards one another, but now Levi had saved the commander's life and even divulged the method to slay the demonic beasts by targeting their necks. The commander, taken aback by Levi's actions, claimed he had been aware of this strategy all along, asserting it was his plan from the beginning. Levi proposed joining forces to combat the monsters and settle their personal dispute. However, their conversation was abruptly interrupted as two more monsters emerged, preventing any further discussion. Levi ventured into the battlefield, leaving the commander with a final instruction. "Do not perish, I have unfinished business with you." Those words were enough to ignite the commander's desire to showcase his prowess. He mustered all his strength, channeling it with ether, and prepared to unleash his ultimate attack. In the blink of an eye, he effortlessly dismantled the monsters, reducing them to mere fragments as they cascaded to the ground. The commander was certain he had decimated everything in his vicinity, including Levi. Yet, to his surprise, Levi stood behind him, catching him off guard. He aimed for the commander's head, but the helmet protected him, buying him a few precious seconds. Levi issued a final warning, cautioning the commander against ever attempting a surprise attack from behind again. Levi's intention had never been to harm the commander in the first place. The commander, astounded by Levi's survival, also never anticipated that the renowned soul harvester would spare his life and issue a warning instead. Suddenly, the commander uttered, "Did my father not mention me?" Unfamiliar with this man or his father, Levi inquired about the commander's lineage. The man introduced himself as Marco, son of Tern, the man Levi had slain a few days prior. Levi deduced the reason for Marco's presence, and asked if he sought revenge for his father. Marco swiftly dismissed the notion, expressing gratitude that Levi had rid the world of such filth. Just then, the ground began to quake with an unsettling noise. The source of the disturbance emerged from beneath the surface, a colossal worm-like monster, with multiple mouths, each boasting a long, menacing tongue. It swiftly located its first prey, ensnaring them within its grasp. However, Guilford appeared out of nowhere, obliterating one of the monster's mouths and rescuing the trapped individual. The saved man, a mercenary, expressed astonishment, questioning Guilford's motive for saving enemy soldiers. Offering only a brief explanation, Guilford urged the man to save anyone in danger. Observing this scene, Levi posed the same question to Guilford. "Are you out of your mind? Why did you save your enemies?" Guilford had a ready response, stating, "Do not judge people based on their utility. We need no justification to save a human life." Levi was taken aback by this perspective, realizing that few, if any, in his previous world shared such values. It was a mindset befitting a knight, one who prioritized the lives of others above their own. On the other hand, Marco, Tern's son, held a contrasting view. He approached Levi, espousing the belief that powerful individuals should not waste their time saving the weak. Amidst the chaos of battle, Marco devised a plan to demonstrate how the strong should resolve their predicaments. He began gathering power and ether once more, preparing for his ultimate attack. Levi warned Marco that utilizing such a skill would result in the deaths of his subordinates as well. However, Marco had planned this from the start, intending to eliminate both the monsters and his subordinates simultaneously. He was determined to execute his ultimate move, but at the last moment, Levi intervened, putting forth great effort to thwart Marco's attack. The two locked eyes, reminiscent of their initial confrontation. After a few tense seconds, Levi inquired, "How can you disregard the lives of your subordinates?" Tern's son maintained a calm demeanor and echoed his father's words before his demise, stating that the lives of others held no meaning to him, as he viewed them merely as tools to expedite his own ambitions. For a brief moment, Levi feigned agreement with Marco and declared, "I cannot speak for Guilford, but I will eliminate anyone who seeks to harm me," swiftly severing Marco's arm. He reminded Marco that he was an expert at dispatching wretches like him. In the first part, we delved into Levi's epic journey, witnessing how he embarked upon this world and valiantly fought for his life. We also uncovered the treacherous betrayal of his mercenary comrades, which led him to an obscure town nestled within an enigmatic forest. Let me now regale you with the remainder of this extraordinary tale. As you may recall, Levi engaged in a fierce battle with Marco, the son of Tern, in a relentless pursuit to protect his subordinates from certain doom. Seizing a moment of opportunity, he astounded Marco by swiftly severing his hand with the aid of ether, finally gaining the upper hand. Charging his sword with an intensified surge of ether, Levi fixed his gaze upon Marco with unbridled hatred, displaying not a shred of hesitation. With all his might, he plunged his sword deep into Marco's chest, determined to bring his adversary to a definitive end. Yet, to his astonishment, Marco remained alive despite enduring such a grievous wound. Levi resolved to administer one final blow, seeking to vanquish Marco once and for all. However, his intentions were abruptly disrupted by a resounding voice, diverting his attention. Emerging out of nowhere, a colossal monster materialized, unleashing a thunderous roar. This behemoth, unlike any other encountered before, harbored malevolent intentions toward humankind. The sight of this demonic creature left Levi and his companions in a state of abject horror, for they had never fathomed the existence of such a monstrosity. Yet, in a moment of realization, Guilford discerned the identity of this gargantuan beast and deduced its uniqueness. This creature was none other than the formidable Red Bear, the mountain's sovereign. Just as the presence of the Red Bear became apparent, someone caught Levi off guard, delivering a powerful punch to his stomach. The force of the blow sent Levi hurtling through the air, momentarily incapacitated. Astonishingly, the assailant bore a striking resemblance to Marco. Levi, racked with pain and confusion, struggled to comprehend the situation. Indeed, it was Marco, but he had regenerated his lost arm and donned an inhuman appendage. Observing this peculiarity, Levi grew suspicious and noticed a small vial clutched between Marco's teeth. It became clear to him that this vial was responsible for Marco's newfound regeneration. As the leader of Viscount Bear's knights, Marco had acquired the vial from the Viscount himself, to be utilized against formidable foes. The elixir not only healed all his wounds but also granted Marco immeasurable strength. Combining ether with his monstrous fist, Marco launched a second devastating punch at Levi. Levi, using his sword as a shield, attempted to block the attack, but the impact was so immense that it caused a cataclysmic explosion in their vicinity. It appeared that Marco derived great pleasure from the fight and desired to prolong their battle. Although he no longer wielded his axe, it proved inconsequential, as his fist had become mightier than any weapon. Having consumed the poison, Marco's body regained the regenerative abilities of a primordial beast. Levi valiantly defended against Marco's relentless onslaught, but the mocking taunts from his opponent began to wear him down. Unable to withstand the assault any longer, Levi found himself forcefully pushed back. Meanwhile, Marco seized a golden opportunity to end Levi once and for all. Springing into the air, his demonic hand aglow with ether, Marco believed his strike would surely spell Levi's demise. However, in a flash of unforeseen intervention, a figure materialized out of thin air, shielding Levi from the fatal blow. It was Guilford, who had been quietly observing their duel. Strangely, he apologized for his intrusion and offered a simple explanation. "Sorry, we're in a hurry." Without hesitation, Guilford clasped Marco's demonic hand and retaliated with a powerful punch, sending him hurtling through the air. Though uncertain of Guilford's motives, Levi expressed gratitude and claimed he could have handled the situation himself. Yet, it became evident that Guilford harbored ulterior motives. "There's no need to thank me," he uttered, swiftly turning and delivering a blow to Levi's stomach with enough force to render him unconscious. With the gigantic bear closing in, it seemed that Guilford had decided to grant Levi a brief respite. He pondered over the epic clash ahead, fully aware that survival for any of them seemed improbable in this treacherous ordeal. He perceived it as a war of unparalleled hunters versus savage beasts, with Levi standing apart, exempt from the chaos. Urging Fennel to transport him swiftly to a secure sanctuary, he yearned to distance himself from the enigma unfolding before his eyes. Levi, still unconscious, remained oblivious to the events and questioned Fennel's motives for bringing him back. How had Guilford and the other hunters found themselves ensnared within this forest? What compelled them to sacrifice their lives for fellow humans? Allow me to recount the genesis of this saga. Nearly 50 years ago, Demonkind and their army descended upon these continents, seeking to invade. Yet, the inhabitants of the land united against them, making countless sacrifices until they ultimately emerged victorious. However, the aftermath of this holy war led to the extinction of all races except humans. Soon thereafter, inexplicable demonic beasts began to plague the continent. Emperor Troyson, the protagonist of the holy war, commanded the nobles to shoulder the responsibility for this beastly menace. Consequently, the nobles coerced numerous young men into sacrificing their lives on their behalf. As a highly ranked knight in the emperor's army, Guilford could not bear witness to the nobles' reprehensible deeds and openly criticized the emperor. Regrettably, the emperor chose not to answer Guilford's query, and instead, a great priest warned him of the dire consequences for questioning the emperor's authority. Threatened by the great priest, Guilford was coerced into taking the place of these men. Despite the difficulty of his decision, he accepted, and some of his loyal comrades followed suit. From that day forward, Guilford assumed the role of a beast hunter, dwelling in the depths of the dark forest. Now let us return to the main narrative. Guilford's eyes exuded fearlessness, devoid of any regret for his choice to become a beast hunter. As they continued their relentless battle against the demonic creatures, it became evident that their adversaries were inexhaustible. The hunters found themselves vastly outnumbered by the myriad of ferocious beasts. Guilford discerned that he needed to confront the boss lurking in the shadows, but a multitude of other demonic creatures stood in his path to the colossal red giant bear. With ample time to strategize, he charged fearlessly onward, obliterating a multitude of wolf beasts that obstructed his way. When the monkey beasts attempted to impede his progress, he effortlessly leaped over them, channeling his ether into his fists, sending them to their doom. However, the true adversary still loomed above. In a flash, he ascended to a vantage point suitable for launching an attack. This time, he harnessed even more ether and power in his arm, striking the giant bear's chest with an awe-inspiring punch. The impact was so forceful, it birthed a thunderstorm around Guilford, accompanied by a resounding roar of agony from the gargantuan beast. Nevertheless, the punch proved insufficient, merely revealing the creature's hidden core. As Guilford laid eyes upon the glowing crystal, he realized that it was the beast's core and knew he had to destroy it. Gathering his remaining strength and ether, he prepared to strike with all his might. Yet, to his dismay, the core's radiance intensified rapidly. Meanwhile, Fennel retraced his steps through the forest, en route to the town. Suddenly, a thunderous explosion rocked the hunter's location, capturing his attention. Levi, stirred by the deafening blast, regained consciousness. His vision and mind still hazy, he gradually comprehended that Fennel was carrying him to safety. Overwhelmed by confusion, he questioned the boy's actions, unable to fathom why Guilford had treated him in such a manner. As Levi awoke, Fennel attempted to elucidate the situation, revealing Guilford's motives and the imperative to transport Levi to a secure haven. However, before he could complete his explanation, something sinister loomed behind him and split Marco to half. It was a monstrous hand similar to Monkey Beast's hand. It became evident that Marco had been tailing them all along, awaiting the opportune moment to strike. Once again, he spewed his nonsensical diatribe about the weak sacrificing themselves for the strong. Fennel, weakened by his profuse bleeding, understood that survival was impossible. Despite his critical condition, he mustered the strength to utter a plea to Levi, urging him to flee and save himself. Levi's heart swelled with sorrow, his countenance bearing the weight of his emotions. Gently, he laid Fennel on the ground, while Marco continued his delusional ranting. Suddenly, Levi produced a dagger and carried out an unthinkable act. He plunged it into Fennel's heart, ending his life with his very hands. Witnessing this abhorrent act, Marco believed that Levi had finally changed his mind, perceiving Fennel as weak and expendable. Marco, however, was only partially correct. In a swift and unexpected motion, Levi retaliated, impaling Marco with the legendary sword of the god Ruam. It became clear that Levi had sacrificed Fennel's life to activate the blessing of Ruam's skill, granting him an additional 1,000 hours of existence. Consumed by rage and fury, Levi wasted no time, swiftly cleaving Marco in two without a moment's hesitation. Not only did he slice the enemy in half, but he also unleashed a powerful wave from his sword, obliterating everything behind him. Levi felt a momentary calmness after this intense battle and stood there, watching Marco's lifeless body, waiting to see if it would regenerate. However, he soon realized that regeneration was impossible without a head. Levi couldn't fathom how a human could possess the same abilities as demonic beasts. Suddenly, a realization struck the protagonist. Now wasn't the time to dwell on such thoughts. There was something more urgent that required attention. Levi glanced at his fallen comrade, Fennel, and although he didn't want to leave him behind, he had no choice. With his legendary sword still in hand, Levi dashed towards the ongoing battlefield. In the midst of the chaos, Guilford, the chief, found himself being pushed back by a colossal, red giant bear-like monster. Its size and regenerative abilities made it a formidable opponent. Despite the odds, Guilford refused to give up. He rallied his subordinates, urging them not to lose hope and to attack together. United, they charged at the monstrous beast. One of the hunters managed to reach the creature before the others and attempted to strike its leg. To his horror, his hand became ensnared within the monster's body. Moments later, a terrifying worm-like creature with razor-sharp teeth emerged, swiftly decapitating him. Similar creatures appeared, resulting in the deaths of many hunters. Guilford warned his subordinates to retreat, but for a brief moment, he seemed stunned by something he witnessed. The giant monster transformed into an even more grotesque form. It advanced towards the hunters, attacking them with its worm-like minions. Despite the danger, the hunters stood their ground, defending themselves as best they could. However, the relentless assault claimed the lives of numerous hunters, overwhelming them. Guilford, unable to bear the sight of his subordinates perishing, grew impatient. Guilford knew that the crystal embedded within the monster's chest was the source of its unimaginable power. Determined to put an end to this menace, he charged forward, evading the attacks of the worm-like creatures. As he drew closer, their numbers multiplied, making progress increasingly difficult. The chief's patience wore thin, and he unleashed his ether, performing a flash-like jump to shatter the creatures in the blink of an eye. This attack not only inflicted significant damage to the beast itself but also exposed its vulnerable core. Guilford realized that waiting any longer would lead to more casualties. With all his might, he struck the core, expecting a decisive blow. To his disbelief, the crystal remained unscathed, and the monster's body began to regenerate, concealing the core once again. Exhausted and depleted of energy, Guilford resorted to using his head to strike the crystal. Although his efforts seemed futile, he refused to give up, knowing the catastrophic consequences if they failed and these creatures reached the nearby cities. In a moment of despair, Levi suddenly appeared. He had heard the commotion created by Guilford and wasted no time in reaching him. Levi assured Guilford that he would put an end to this once and for all. With a concentrated focus, Levi invoked the power of the war god, Ruam, seeking divine assistance. Guilford watched in awe as Levi's true power was revealed, no longer relying on mere ether but harnessing the might of Ruam. In a breathtaking display, Levi not only cleaved the crystal core and the monstrous creature in half but also caused them to vanish, obliterating the land behind them. Levi's actions saved Guilford and a few remaining comrades. Bewildered, Guilford asked why Levi would risk his life like this. Levi simply replied that he was a beast hunter, and it was his duty to confront such formidable creatures. There was no hint of regret in his words. Guilford couldn't help but burst into laughter. He found it amusing that Levi, with his limited skills, considered himself a hunter. However, he also admired Levi's determination and offered to teach him the ways of hunting. Both of them stood there, captivated by the beautiful sunset, as they agreed to share their knowledge and experiences. But then, in an unexpected turn of events, Guilford noticed Levi staggering backward. Uncertain of how to react, Guilford observed as Levi explained that this was a typical consequence of using the power of the god Ruam. However, there was something different this time. Sadly, Levi would no longer be able to access the blessings of Ruam, leaving them with an uncertain future ahead. After a few days, two strangers arrived in the mysterious and foreboding dark forest. It appeared as though they had journeyed all this way with a purpose, to investigate the crystal seal. The boy seemed particularly anxious about being in such an unknown and eerie place, while the girl remained calm, attempting to reassure him that there was nothing to fear. The boy mentioned that he would keep talking and occupying his mind to forget about the possibility of the crystal seal breaking. He knew that if it shattered, an unstoppable wave of consciousness would be unleashed, polluting everything in its vicinity. Not only would the environment turn into a desolate land of death, but nothing would grow there either. Just the thought of the putrid smell made the boy feel sick. However, the girl disagreed and assured him that he wouldn't be vomiting. Puzzled, the boy asked her to explain, and she revealed that if he looked around the forest, he would understand that the problem had already been resolved. Expecting something different based on what they had heard, they were surprised to find the forest in a state of unparalleled peace. Doubt crept into their minds, making them question if they had come to the right place at all. Standing near the road, on the edge of a cliff, the boy gazed out at the forest and realized that there was something truly extraordinary happening this time. Meanwhile, Levi, seated atop a spectral beast, pondered why he couldn't find any other creatures within the forest after a whole day of searching. The number of monsters seemed to have significantly decreased, but he wasn't sure if it was due to the defeat of the demonic monster from the previous day. Another serious issue confronted him. He couldn't comprehend why he couldn't use the skill of the god Ruam anymore. Suddenly, Guilford arrived and interrupted his thoughts, chastising him for making his master wait so long for training. However, despite his impatience, Guilford was thrilled to impart some valuable lessons to Levi. Not long ago, Levi had been consumed by thoughts of the countless lives sacrificed to defeat the foolish giant demonic beast. They had buried the fallen warriors and placed swords upon their graves as a mark of respect. Guilford, however, yearned to join them, missing their presence dearly. On the other hand, Levi still carried guilt over Fennel's death, even though he knew there was nothing he could have done. He silently wished for Fennel to cook even better meals in his next life. Following that, Levi and Guilford proceeded to the training ground, where Guilford aimed to teach Levi how to harness the power of ether for more effective results. The key was to focus one's ether on a single point for both defense and attack, yielding optimal outcomes. Levi diligently blocked Guilford's punches, yet the pain reverberated throughout his body, reinforcing Guilford's teachings. Meanwhile, Guilford remained curious about how Levi had managed to utilize the god of war Ruam's skill on the previous occasion. Levi, however, was unwilling to divulge any information. This conversation distracted Levi, allowing Guilford to land a strong punch on his chest. Levi retaliated, feeling as though he had already been thoroughly beaten, questioning why he should disclose anything. Exhausted, Levi realized that it would be better for Chief to train another disciple. The girl, who had played the role of bait during a previous event, grew slightly upset due to the prolonged wait. Levi attempted to lighten the mood with a light-hearted joke, cautioning Chief to be careful as the girl had been in a bad mood all week. Guilford, however, expressed his belief in the girl's immense potential to become a knight. Her name was Belle, and in response to Guilford's praise, she playfully bowed and referred to Levi as senior multiple times, aiming to embarrass him. Guilford endeavored to teach Belle the fundamentals of utilizing ether with focus, but Belle was eager to learn swordplay. Chief insisted that she first concentrate on mastering the basics. Meanwhile, someone arrived and greeted Uncle Guilford. Chief's expression didn't reflect joy upon seeing the newcomers. They were the same strangers who had come to investigate the dark forest previously. Guilford introduced Levi as one of the main hunters among the dealers, and they exchanged greetings. Once again, Chief inquired about the reason behind their sudden visit. At first, the boy feigned nonchalance, claiming it was nothing serious. However, a few seconds later, he asked if there was someone capable of wielding the power of gods among them. In an instant, Levi and Guilford were taken aback, their shocked expressions betraying their knowledge of the matter. Sensing their reaction, the boys swiftly cast a spell, binding the three of them with a form of restrictive magic. Levi soon recognized that this mage possessed remarkable skills to immobilize them so effortlessly. Despite his rough treatment, the boy apologized, emphasizing the importance of the matter at hand. Guilford's mood darkened, puzzled by the sudden change in demeanor from someone he had known for a long time. The mage began to explain the reason for their visit, inquiring about anyone who might possess the power of gods. He mentioned encountering a crystal-like stone known as the Sealing Stone, which had shattered, but its power remained trapped within. Only the power of a god could shatter it and not anything else. Levi and Guilford knew exactly what had transpired the other day, but they were hesitant to fully trust the boy and reveal everything. The conversation continued, and for a brief moment, the mage let his guard down. Seizing the opportunity, Guilford launched an attack, fueled by his anger towards the boy's earlier words. However, before the blow could land, the girl intervened, blocking Guilford's attack with an icy dagger. It became evident that the girl served as the mage's bodyguard. However, this encounter was far from ordinary. Guilford, a seasoned warrior, possessed an uncanny knowledge of countering icy swords. With swift determination, he charged towards his opponent, a young girl who had proven to be a worthy adversary. This time, Guilford effortlessly shattered her sword by channeling his ether into his clenched fist. The girl was taken aback by this unexpected turn of events but refused to back down. Undeterred, she summoned 2 additional swords, hoping to fight back against Guilford's relentless assault. To her surprise, Guilford was prepared for such an occurrence, and swiftly shattered both blades in a matter of seconds. His face bore the expression of a seasoned killer, as he sought to teach the newcomer a hard-learned lesson. Guilford lunged forward, intending to finish her off, but the girl had a surprising trick up her sleeve. In a display of unparalleled skill, she summoned over 20 swords effortlessly, without even needing to employ her hands. Guilford found himself caught off guard and utterly astonished. Seizing the opportunity, the girl deftly positioned herself upon Guilford's back, placing 2 swords menacingly against his vulnerable neck. Guilford's life hung by a thread, but the girl had no intention of ending him. Instead, she sought to punish him for his transgressions. With a gentleness that belied her fierce demeanor, she probed Guilford about the source of divine power and its wielders. Reluctant to reveal the identity of the true bearer of divine power, Guilford hesitated. The girl, perhaps to convince or intimidate him, threatened to sever one of Guilford's arms. However, a voice within, belonging to Levi, could not bear to witness Guilford sacrifice his limb. Levi intervened, pleading for mercy, and promised to disclose all they sought. "I am the one who wields the divine power," he confessed. "Release my chief." Guilford's disappointment at Levi's seemingly easy surrender was palpable. In an attempt to ascertain the truth, a magician among them pulled Levi closer, employing a simple spell to examine the boy's body for traces of energy. To Levi's dismay, he sensed an unpleasant energy coursing through his veins. Before long, the mage confirmed the veracity of Levi's claim and decided to release them all simultaneously. The girl, filled with remorse, offered an apology to Guilford, emphasizing that her actions stemmed from a sense of justice rather than personal animosity. A few minutes later, the magician requested a private conversation with Levi, away from prying eyes. Initially hesitant, Levi relented when the mage revealed his knowledge of Levi's reincarnation into this unfamiliar world. The magician began by reiterating that only a god's power could shatter the sealing stone without incurring unintended consequences. However, he was astonished to witness Levi's extraordinary ability to manipulate ether and simultaneously wield divine power. Perplexed, Levi couldn't comprehend what was amiss. The magician explained that the coexistence of ether and divine power was an anomaly, rarely known among mortals. Levi realized that only a select few, like Guilford and others, possessed knowledge of divine power. The only puzzle remaining was how this mage had discovered Levi's origins outside this world. Suddenly, the magician boy diverted Levi's attention, urging him to pray to the gods. Initially doubting the efficacy of such an act, Levi questioned whether prayer was indeed a means to establish a connection with the gods. In a moment of vulnerability, Levi revealed, "Recently, I received a notice from the god of war, Ruam, expressing his desire to terminate our deal." The magician found it extraordinary that a mere human had struck a deal with a god, believing that such agreements required equality between both parties. Levi regretted his confession instantly, desperately attempting to pass it off as a jest or the ramblings of a madman, but it was too late. Refusing to waste any more time, the magician insisted that Levi commence his prayer. He imparted the knowledge of how to pray in this realm, emphasizing the importance of focusing on desires and summoning the gods. Levi, unsure of the outcome, decided to give it a try. Suddenly, he found himself transported to a celestial expanse resembling a galaxy. Before long, a commanding voice called out his name, identifying itself as Marisela, the deity of abundance and life. Levi stood in awe of the magnificent deity before him, for it was his first encounter with a god of such grandeur. Confusion clouded Levi's mind as he questioned why Marisela had responded instead of the god of war, Ruam. The deity explained that Ruam had chosen not to heed Levi's calls due to his perceived negligence and disregard for the agreement they had made. Levi, however, remained oblivious to any requests or bargains with gods since his arrival in this world. Marisela had come not to answer Levi's prayer but to chastise his lack of diligence. Yet, as she observed Levi's imperfect reincarnation, her interest was piqued, and she decided to grant him something he desperately needed. However, there would be a price to pay, an activation of his quest system that would forever remove the limitations on his life, but she decided to give it for free. Meanwhile, the sorcerer was astonished as he laid eyes on Levi. He couldn't believe what he witnessed. Levi was connected to the deity Marisela, and she was channeling her divine strength into his body. It was a remarkable sight for the young boy to witness someone who could wield both ether and divine power simultaneously, let alone tap into the holy might of different gods. He was certain that there was something extraordinary about Levi that had captured the interest of the deities. Not far away, Guilford sat beneath a tree, patiently awaiting Levi's return. His body ached from the previous battle, and the girl felt sympathy for him. She approached him and inquired if he was feeling any better. Guilford didn't take her concern seriously, and questioned why the boy had sought out a man who possessed the power of the gods. The girl didn't have an answer, so she simply replied, "I am his servant, and I have no right to question my master. It is merely a task we must fulfill to prevent a potential threat." Guilford winced in pain, attempting to alleviate his discomfort through massage. The girl's concern didn't have any effect on him, and he warned her that if anything happened to Levi, they would both pay with their lives. The girl sensed an imposing pressure from Guilford, realizing that he had held back in their previous battle. Nevertheless, she remained composed and pretended not to notice. Meanwhile, Belle was intrigued by something and wanted to inquire the girl. "Hey, Annie, how did you summon those gleaming swords in your hands?" The girl summoned another sword and displayed it to Belle. Guilford was aware that the secret techniques of sword families were closely guarded, and he expected the girl not to divulge the truth. However, the girl defied his expectations and startled Guilford momentarily. She revealed the magic circles engraved on her hands, known as stigma, which granted her the ability to summon the swords she had seen before. As the conversation progressed, Belle's interest grew, much to Guilford's dismay. He knew he would face repercussions later for teaching Belle about such matters. Their interaction was brief, and Belle inquired if they possessed something similarly extraordinary. Guilford responded, "No, we lack anything of that nature." However, Belle's disappointed expression revealed her desire for a different answer. Observing her disappointment, Guilford's frustration got the best of him, and he couldn't restrain himself any longer. After a few seconds, he managed to regain some composure and advised Belle to focus on becoming strong through effort and perseverance, rather than relying on markings on her body. But Belle wasn't certain if his words were genuine, as she had witnessed the girl defeat Guilford in battle mere minutes ago. Suddenly, Levi and the young sorcerer returned, signaling the end of their conversation. Guilford was still upset with Belle and attempted to teach him some manners, but Levi's arrival diverted his attention. He inquired if the sorcerer had done anything suspicious to Levi. Levi avoided the question for some reason and simply said, "Everything is settled now." Meanwhile, the girl was curious to ascertain if Levi truly possessed godlike powers. The sorcerer confirmed that Levi was truthful and indeed had a connection to the gods. Not just one, but two of them, Marisela and the god of war, Ruim. However, the sorcerer had expected to encounter the god of humans before encountering any other deities, and that unexpected revelation surprised him. Having received their answer, the sorcerer intended to depart, but Guilford invited them to stay and share a meal. The sorcerer hadn't anticipated this hospitality and expressed gratitude, saying, "Now you're taking care of us?" "Oh, thank you." Guilford, still curious about their conversation with Levi, couldn't extract much information from Levi this time. So, he turned to the sorcerer and inquired about it. However, the sorcerer didn't provide a straightforward response either. He simply said, "We concluded that discussion. Levi may not be a heathen, but he was the one who safely shattered the sealing stone with the aid of the gods." The sorcerer then informed Guilford and the others that the number of demonic creatures in the forest would decrease following the disappearance of the sealing stone, and would eventually vanish completely within 10 years. He also proposed that they withdraw from the forest since there would be fewer monsters to contend with. However, Guilford declined the sorcerer's request and expressed his desire to remain in the forbidden forest until he had slain the very last monster. He had no reason to leave the forest at that moment. Suddenly, they heard noises emanating from a distance. Guilford recognized them as a few soldiers from Viscount Bear's army who had caused trouble for them previously. He didn't hesitate, and wanted to attack them as he knew they were enemies and came here to harm hunters. But unexpectedly, they raised their hands and showed no intention to fight. They were frightened, but suddenly one of Guilford's subordinates showed up and saved them. He explained that these guys had brought a lot of meat and liquor as a token of gratitude for saving them the other day. Guilford couldn't wish for anything better, and they had a grand feast, becoming friends and having a lot of fun together. Belle, in particular, had a blast, devouring all the meat like a hungry monster, surprising the girl with her enormous appetite. Meanwhile, Levi sat alone in a corner, enjoying his solitude. However, the magician boy intruded on his peaceful moment within minutes. Levi wasn't happy about having another conversation with just the two of them. Nevertheless, the magician boy had something important to show him. It was a bounty poster with Levi's picture on it. It seemed that he had picked up the poster while passing through a nearby village, which piqued Levi's curiosity. He examined the bounty poster closely and noticed that the price on his head had been raised to 26,000 gold. This infuriated him, as he knew his debt was only 8,600 gold, and he had no idea why they had increased the bounty. Guilford and Belle noticed something in Levi's hand and came closer to check it out. Guilford asked, "Did you upset someone or get on someone's wrong side?" He was surprised to see how Levi had been living so boldly with such a large bounty on his head, and his words made Levi feel uncomfortable. Meanwhile, the magician boy interrupted and asked Guilford if he really wanted to stay in the forbidden forest or return to the royal guard. Guilford responded, "How many times do you want to ask the same question? Can't you see how many people have gathered here and are having fun because of us? Why would I leave this place?" Levi glared at them, enjoying the conversation, but suddenly a system window appeared, indicating that the main quest was starting right now. He didn't know or maybe didn't understand what it meant, so he asked Guilford and Tezwa about it. "Hey, you guys, do you know what manhwa is?" Suddenly, Guilford put his hand on Levi's mouth, silencing him for some reason, as if he had spoken forbidden words. But all Levi wanted to know was what the quest required of him. Guilford swiftly surveyed his surroundings, ensuring that no one had overheard the name mentioned. The atmosphere seemed relaxed and everyone appeared to be immersed in their own enjoyment. Determined to prevent Levi from uttering that name again, Guilford turned to Tezwa, seeking confirmation if he had heard it correctly or if it was a mere misunderstanding. Levi, struggling to catch his breath, forcefully pushed Guilford's hand away and demanded an explanation for the strange reactions. He was genuinely bewildered by the intensity of their response. While Guilford simmered with frustration towards Levi, Teswa recognized Levi's innocence and decided to enlighten him about everything. The young magician began by reminding Levi about the existence of 3 gods who safeguarded humanity. The first was Ruam, the god of war, whose powers Levi had already been utilizing. The second was Marisela, the goddess of abundance and life, while the third was Charlotte, the god of order and humanity. Teswa revealed a tale from the distant past, when these 3 gods valiantly battled against the evil god that Levi had mentioned earlier, all in the name of preserving humanity. The combat had taken a toll on them, resulting in significant damage. Levi started to grasp the gods' intentions, speculating that they wanted him to identify and perhaps confront humanity's enemy. The reason behind the caution of not mentioning the name lay in a legend that prophesied a dire fate for whoever dared to reveal it. For a moment, a wave of terror washed over Levi as he realized he had already uttered the name. However, Teswa quickly clarified that the consequences were not as instantaneous as a lightning strike. He explained that calling the true name of the evil god amounted to blasphemy, and the followers of the evil god would not hesitate to exact punishment upon hearing it. Guilford's curiosity grew, and after Teswa had imparted all necessary knowledge to Levi, he expressed his desire to understand the sudden urgency. Nevertheless, Levi remained hesitant to disclose his connection to the gods and his system. This only served to further enrage Guilford, who believed that Levi was withholding information due to Teshua's advice. Levi, however, asserted that the decision was entirely his own, and he had no intention of causing trouble. Determined and resolute, Levi had made up his mind to pursue his destiny. Yet, Guilford couldn't shake off his nagging curiosity, wondering why Levi refused to divulge the details to him. The magician boy observed their conversation with a joyful expression, eager to witness their exchange. Levi confided in them that he intended to leave the town and embark upon his dreams. Guilford disagreed with his decision, but ultimately respected Levi's independence. Guilford and Teswa then acted as guides, directing Levi towards the kingdom of Cetria. Levi remained uncertain about the location and the reason behind this chosen destination. In response, they explained that the kingdom served as a harmonious dwelling for both humans and dragons, where they coexisted peacefully. However, freely investigating the evil god would not be feasible there. The conversation concluded that night, and the following morning, Belle vigorously trained to enhance her concentration on ether. In a sudden turn of events, when the bodyguard girl was about to relieve herself, she noticed Belle and offered words of encouragement, uplifting her spirits. Belle expressed her desire to grow stronger, yearning to free herself from the shackles of being pushed around by others. With a playful expression, she remarked on her current predicament of only being able to punch the air, while her aspiration was to wield a gargantuan sword akin to Levi's legendary weapon. Sensing Belle's need for motivation, the girl tossed her sword towards her, igniting a spark within her. Belle stood there, stunned, questioning whether it was a dream or reality. Overwhelmed with joy, she gingerly grasped the sword in her hands, her eyes radiating with happiness. She could hardly believe that such a magnificent sword had become her very first sword. However, her elation was short-lived, as an unintentional surge of ether caused the sword to shatter. Belle stood there, aghast, screaming in disbelief at the sudden destruction of her cherished weapon. Levi and Guilford observed the scene unfold, quickly realizing that Belle possessed the ability to harness ether. While Belle mourned the loss of her treasured sword, Guilford couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, witnessing the emergence of Belle's latent potential. Before long, Teswa joined them, announcing his own intention to depart from the town due to the subpar quality of the food. Guilford and Teswa presented Levi with special items to aid him on his journey to the kingdom of Cetria, prompting heartfelt gratitude from Levi. Reflecting upon the past 2 months spent amongst the beast hunters in this town, Levi marveled at how they had transformed his mindset and way of life. Belle and Guilford bid Levi farewell, expressing their hopes for his swift return. A few minutes later, Levi embarked on his journey to seek his destiny and fulfill his quest. Little did he know, lurking in the shadows, a demonic creature was spying on him. It was certain that Levi had broken the sealing stone and possessed a connection to the gods. With an air of anticipation, they relayed this information to a higher power, possibly the demon queen herself, who eagerly awaited the opportunity to meet Levi in person.